This is the midterm review session for special problems in animation. You should know some computer terms and definitions. The basic ones that you really need to remember are bit, which stands for binary digit. Computer memory is a measured state change, so 0 or 1, on or off. It's the smallest unit of computer memory. A byte is a group of 8 bits, which is also called an octet. And pixels is a picture element, one dot of light on the screen. A computer screen consists of a grid pattern of dots. Now, when we talk about frames per second, we're talking about how fast something is playing. We're talking about the unit of frame rate. Frame rate is an important concept. It allows it to be a smooth animation with a higher frame rate, or a rough animation with a slower frame rate, a lower frame rate. Some of the common frame rates include 29.97p, which is 29.97 FPS. This is the NTSC drop frame, which was necessary in early video to compensate for the addition of color and the frame rate that we are using in this class. So in early video, they used to use 30 FPS, but when they added the color line to the film, they had to take away from 30 to add the information. So they put it into the bottom part, or the extra part of the FPS line, and that meant that they had to cut part of it off. So that's drop frame. 24p is the standard adoption for sound movies and 35mm sound film in the 20s and 30s. 25p is the video format used for compatibility with television frame rates. And 30p is the progressive video format. Some important animators that we have gone over this semester include Winsor McCay, Walt Disney, and Max and Dave Fleischer. Winsor McCay is an early groundbreaking animator who released Gertie the Dinosaur in 1913, which inspired Disney and Fleischer to become animators. Walt Disney, an early animator who became perhaps the most important of his generation, he introduced Mickey Mouse, sound animation, Technicolor cartoons, and the Silly Symphonies. Max and Dave Fleischer, they were early animators who invented rotoscoping in 1917. They're the animators of the Out of the Inkwell series, Betty Boop, Popeye, and Superman. Rotoscoping is a method of tracing filmed or videotaped movements to create natural motion in animation. It was invented by Max Fleischer in 1917. The Fleischers held the patent for both the machine which Max invented and for the technique of rotoscoping itself. We used rotoscoping to trace an image sequence of a greyhound running from Edward Muybridge's sequential images, and you remember that. We did that using the Animate program. Classic animation keyframes are a frame showing an important change in position or appearance, which is used as a guide for subsequent action. It's used in storyboards to tell the story. In computer animation, a keyframe, shown here is the keyframe, linear keyframe icon from After Effects. Keyframes hold information about the position, scale, opacity, rotation, and orientation for a specific point in time on the timeline. A frame is a single image that is part of a scene, like a word in writing. A scene is action unbroken by any change to another visual, which, if you were talking about grammar, like in a language, you would call it a sentence. A sequence is a series of scenes that are expressing a single theme, which is analogous to a paragraph in grammar. A storyboard is a visual outline of an animation or movie using keyframes to describe the action. It contains notes about dialogue, camera moves, and editing. And here you see the keyframe that was shown a couple of slides earlier. You notice that each of these keyframes does have a good description about what's about to happen in the animation so that it serves as notes for the production staff. It's important to know the punctuation of scene transitions. So a fade or crossfade is the gradual appearance or disappearance of a scene to black. Fades separate major sequences of action, suggest a lapse of time or a change of location. The length of the fade will determine the dramatic effect. On the other hand, Venetian blinds is a type of wipe. In a wipe, the current scene is displaced by a following scene with a distinct edge between. In this case, the shape of the blinds is a set of parallel bars which grow or shrink to reveal the next scene. A wipe is a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal wipe, displaces one scene with another with a distinct edge between. In this case, the first scene moves from the right to reveal the next scene, and the edge is feathered to create a smooth transition. An iris wipe or circle wipe. The iris or circle wipe displaces the following scene with a round or oval shape and grows or shrinks to reveal the next scene. A block dissolve. A dissolve is a fade-in superimposed over a fade-out, while a block dissolve uses square shapes that are exaggerated raster shapes to replace the previous image. It is like a combined wipe and a dissolve. A radial wipe. A radial wipe uses a sweeping rotating edge, like an analog clock second hand, to replace the current scene with the following scene. A page turn or peel off. The in-betweens fill in the gradual changes between keyframes to create the illusion of a smooth movement. So as you see here, there are 4 keyframes which then have the intermediate frames in between drawn in. Vector graphics. Mathematical formulas are used to describe the shapes in the file. The fonts can be scaled without losing definition and appear the same at any resolution. Whereas raster graphics, the image is composed of individual pixels on a 2-dimensional grid. Scaled fonts appear jagged and fuzzy. Pixel, the picture element, one dot of light on the screen. The raster map is a grid filled with pixel dots to create the picture. In a raster image, when the object is magnified, the dots become larger and more apparent. So the resolution or number of pixels per inch determines the clarity of detail of the image. So some design theories that you can use for composition. The rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a general theory that divides an image plane into 9 equal zones by placing 2 equally spaced vertical lines and 2 equally spaced horizontal lines. The artist then organizes objects and space by arranging the image using these guides, either to locate things along the lines or intersections, or somehow relate objects to the grid structure. Photography, film, painting, and other fields use this theory. Another design theory, dominant versus subordinate. Use the placement, size, and relationships between objects to tell your audience what is important, how it is related to the space, and to other objects, and what your animation means. Larger objects will be seen as more important. Objects in the foreground have more importance than objects in the background. Dominance is determined by size, large red triangle, large white circle, shape, triangle, pointy, circle, round, color, red, strong, vibrant, extremely saturated, value, black, dark, falls back, white, comes forward, red, strong, also comes forward, depth, texture, saturation, how saturated is the image, how saturated is the color, orientation, in the foreground, the background, the left, the right, up, down, in relation to each other. Color theory, you can use color to determine what is most important in your image. So warm colors like magenta, red, orange, and yellow come forward visually and dominate the space. And you can see there's a lot of warm red, magenta, yellow colors coming forward. But cool colors, green, blue, and violet, tend to recede. So you can see that the shadows are sort of violet and blue. The colors of the water tend to seem to fall back. You've got a lot of blue in the sky behind. There are warmer hues of green and cooler hues of yellow, and colors can be warmed or cooled by mixing with the other hues. Very saturated colors come forward and reduced shades recede. So reduced means you've added gray to it, and saturated means you have a lot of pigment. While pale tints of colors may recede, but when placed next to darker colors will come forward. So the comparison with the nearby colors will determine the color effect. Gestalt principles are very important, can be used to organize your space. So the concept of figure ground. The figure is the positive image, the ground is the negative space, or the white space meaning nothing's there. Might not be white, but you can see this as two people silhouetted against a window, or you can see it as a vase, a white vase with a dark background. Equilibrium. Every psychological field tends toward order, balance, and maximum efficiency. So things tend to want to be balanced. And if it's not balanced, your eye tries to make it balanced. Isomorphic correspondence. People are reminded of their physical or psychological experiences by images that will trigger the memory. So this is stop signs and other types of signs you see on the road. Those are embedded in your ideas so that red stop signs are something you have to stop. Caution signs means there's danger. Green, yellow, red. So green is go, yellow is slow down, red is stop. You see a snowflake, you think of cold. You know, these are things that are in our minds. These are shapes that they're iconic. So iconic meaning that it triggers an idea, and it's not just a shape anymore. It has meaning. Closure. We have a natural tendency to close the gaps and complete an unfinished form visually, such as pliers, a gate in a fence, the opening of the letter C, etc. So here you finish the form. You can see that that's still the same person's profile, even though it's all broken up. Proximity. Closer shapes form groups by visually uniting so they look like they belong together. Continuation. A straight line or curve, like an arrow, starts your eyes following, and you will keep looking along that direction until something else stops you. Similarity. Identical objects will be seen together in groups. Similar objects are defined by shape, size, color, and direction. Sports uniforms use similarity so we can tell the teams apart. So in this grid-like layout of profiles, the red profiles form a sort of a group, and they create a shape even though they're all in the same position relative to each other as the black ones are. The persistence of vision. The eye sees images in sequence changing quickly, and the images persist on the retina until replaced by the next image. They are interpreted by the brain as smooth motion, and this concept is the basis for movies, video, animation, etc. So an early form of animation or movie was the phenakistoscope or phantoscope. And this is a phantoscope, and this is how it worked. You spun it around and looked through the slot into a mirror, and you would see someone on the other side doing whatever it was. Here they're dancing. Now you remember that we are using the additive color system with video, red, green, and blue. And when you mix them together, they make white because they are lights. They are the actual pixel dots of light. They are the rasters on your screen, and they are shooting light at you. So the more you add, the brighter it gets. The subtractive color system would be like the CMYK system: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Black is what you get when you add them all together, and that's because the subtractive color system absorbs light rays, and the more color you put on, the darker it gets. Remember the 12 principles of animation. Squash and stretch. This will make a shape change to follow the direction that it is moving and flatten as it lands. The volume stays the same. If it stretches longer, it becomes skinnier. If it becomes flatter, it also becomes fatter. This makes an object appear to be moving naturally. Anticipation, and here you see both anticipation and stretch and squash. When the character is about to make a move, he pulls back to collect energy, like a cat crouching before leaping, or like our string running across the stage. We've got our straight ahead. We draw, go to the next frame and draw some more. Additive, you draw, duplicate your frame, add to the image, duplicate that frame, and over just keep duplicating and adding to the frame. Subtractive, you draw, copy the frame, erase them, copy, and continue to erase and copy the frame until the image is gone. And then manual transform, you draw it, then you duplicate, and then you keep changing the shape using the transforms that are available. Stretch, skew, rotate, do whatever you want to, but don't move it too much. And if you do that across several frames, you can make it look like your object is changing shape and bouncing around. Pose to pose, another sort of straight ahead. Pose to pose is more in-betweening though. The time of a move is calculated. When does it start? How long does it last? Where does it end? And the number of frames needed is determined. The beginning pose of the move is drawn, the ending pose is drawn, and a position in the middle is drawn. And then we use onion skinning, semi-transparent overlays, to finish the sequence using in-betweening. Ease in, ease out, or slow in, slow out. It's the same thing, just a different way of saying it. You start the motion slowly and end it quickly to ease in, or begin it quickly but end it slowly to ease out. So In the After Effects universe, ease in, you have to remember you ease into the station. So when you're easing into the station, you're going to slow your train down. Then you ease out from the station, and when you ease out from the station, you're going to speed your train up. Filmmaking shots. Remember we talked about how you can organize your space and use the different direction and distance of your camera, so to speak, from the image. That's your shot, to establish where you are and then to go closer so you can see the characters interacting. So establishing shots are set back from the characters to show enough information to set up all the basics of the situation, where it takes place and what is happening. So you've got your long shot and your extreme long shots. Those are your establishing shots. Medium shots, or two shots, are closer and more intimate. They allow the viewers to hear dialogue and see the details of the action. So a full shot would be the full body. The medium shot is usually when you've got two people close up in conversation, so from the waist up. And then close-up shots are very close. They show a lot of detail of action and facial expression. So while the characters are involved in their communication, then you would have a close-up shot of the person who's talking or the person who's listening so you can get the reaction. Different file formats and extensions that we have used this semester so far. We've got your PSD file, which is a proprietary file format for Photoshop, raster with vector capabilities. Text layers in Photoshop files can be converted to editable text in After Effects. Then the Illustrator or AI file, proprietary file format for Adobe Illustrator, vector-based images and graphics. Vector art can be converted to After Effects shape layers, and Illustrator layers can be continuously rasterized for sharper resolution. An AEP file is the proprietary file format for Adobe After Effects, which is a project file. After Effects is a visual effects and compositing application used for motion graphics and film production. And then some others, we've got the MP4, which is a digital media format based on QuickTime for compressed video files. That's what we've been using for output. MP3 is a compressed audio coding format for digital audio. AIF, that's the audio interchange file format, a digital audio file format developed by Apple Incorporated in 1988, and that is one that you're able to use in Audition. Waveform audio file format, an audio file format standard developed for storing audio on PCs, Windows, and IBM audio file format. And those are all the different formats except for the SWF and the FLA. But we're not going to talk about Animate for the rest of the semester, so I'm not going to make you remember it for the midterm. So good luck, everyone. I hope you all have really good midterm exams.